This is Cruise Radio.
I cruise a lot and I always sail with travel insurance. You should too. Get a free quote today at tripinsurance.com.
Here we go.
Broadcasting from the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida. This is Cruise Radio.
Andrea just returned from a 10-night cruise on Celebrity Infinity. This was a best of Greece cruise. It was on the ship that, if it sounds familiar, it was because Celebrity Infinity was taken out of service on the cruise before hers, and the cruise before that had ended 2 days early, or maybe a day, because of a little technical issue they had on board with some electrical faults. So it didn't go to dry dock, though, did it, Andrea?
No, it wasn't. It actually stayed in Piraeus, which is the port in Athens, to be repaired. So, yeah, it didn't actually go into a dry dock.
Before I go any further, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Doug. Well, honestly, I'm a massive fan of the podcast, so thank you so much for having me on for this episode.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear about this, especially with all the chaos before your cruise. I am curious, so as we get to pre-cruise thoughts here, first I'll ask you, what made you want to take this 10-nighter on Celebrity Infinity? You're up in the UK, and you had to get down there to Athens.
Absolutely. So we cruise quite a bit, but we are very much cruisers who like a deal. Greece had been on our hit list, so it's a bit of a bucket list destination, having never been there before. And so when we were looking at Greek cruises, this one came up kind of out of season at just such a good deal that it was a bit too good not to take up the opportunity. And also, I think we felt that Greece can be so hot in the summer and also very crowded in those high tourist areas that we wanted it to be a bit cooler and to have the opportunity to explore a bit more freely. So this was a 10-day cruise, which felt like a sweet spot between the 7 and 14 days that us Brits tend to take.
Plus, I mean, yeah, you picked the right time to go because, gosh, last summer in Greece, God bless them, people were dropping like flies out there with heat stroke.
Absolutely. And we spoke to someone in our port in Kusadasi at Ephesus, and he was taking us around the sites, and he was saying to us that it had got up to into the 50s, which is so hot. I don't know what your conversion is in the US, sorry, but but yeah, that's like mega, and like you say, I think really oppressive and just a bit too much. So we definitely wanted to go when it was slightly cooler. That's a fact.
50 Celsius is 122 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's very hot. Yeah, especially for us over here in Florida. As you were kind of, preparing to go on this 10-night cruise, of course, the ship gets sidelined because of a technical issue for 10 days. Did you have any hesitation about sailing this, or were you like, you know what, we're booked it, we got a good deal, we're going regardless?
So it's really interesting, isn't it? Because it's like, oh my goodness, well, what do you do? And can I just say, having heard that sailing sadly had been cancelled, the compensation from Celebrity was so good. I think that they really, from what I understand anyway, they really looked after the guests. And so we were then going, well, actually, if the cruise is cancelled and we get like our cruise money back and maybe a future cruise credit, we could go anywhere, we could do anything. So we then started to look at alternatives for the same time. Nice. But actually, as I say, it was a bucket list. It was somewhere we really, really wanted to go. So we would have been extremely disappointed. Yes, there were a few nerves, but, these ships, they are on the go 24/7, aren't they? And they don't really stop unless they go into the dry dock. So I think for us, we knew that they would be doing everything that they could to get that next cruise going. They'd got a decent amount of time to make sure it was safe. And I think ultimately that's the main thing that you're mostly concerned about, isn't it? You just want to know that if you're going to step foot on that ship, that all the tests have been done thoroughly and that it's going to be a safe cruise. I was on a Facebook group prior to this, as a lot of the cruises have, and there were quite a number of disgruntled guests that were trying to arrange their travel plans around it. And I guess for us, because we were a bit closer, we weren't coming into Athens too much earlier. So whereas I know a lot of people that were travelling, perhaps from the States or Canada or Asia even, had got quite, substantial travel plans to actually get to Greece in the first place. So I can totally understand their concerns.
What is it like, 4 hours from Heathrow in London down to Athens?
Yeah, 3.5 to 4. Yeah, it's really quite quick.
Nice. Did you do any pre-cruise time, or was a flight that quick, just a day of kind of thing?
No, we did actually. And we actually took advantage of the kind of celebrity package for this. So we booked through a local travel agent who then obviously used celebrities package options. So Celebrity had arranged our flights. We had one night in a hotel prior to embarkation, and it also included all of our transfers to and from the airport to the hotel and from the hotel to the port. So actually that was just peace of mind right from day one. We arrived into Athens around about 5 o'clock in the evening of the day before we were due to embark the ship. So we had one night in a hotel and a couple of hours the next morning just to sort of familiarise ourselves with the local area, because we were having a final day in Athens with an overnight at the very end of the cruise.
Before we get to the ship, I do have a question. I'm trying to think how to phrase this. So there's a difference in tipping culture and gratuities between the European market and the North American market. Is it a per day charge on Celebrity like it is here for North Americans, or do you buy a bundled package instead?
So to be fair, I think with Celebrity in particular, actually, we've done Royal Caribbean as well. I think it is a daily gratuity, but we actually chose to pay our gratuities up front so that it was already done and dusted, so that we knew that it was covered. I think if not, it would just go onto our onboard account. We were actually on the solstice, November, December, and we hadn't actually prepaid our gratuities, so that came on as a daily charge onto our onboard account. The English cruise lines, the likes of P&O, Marella, which is part of the TUI group, they already have gratuities included in the base price of the total cost of the holiday. So we don't even have to consider that, if that makes sense. But when we are travelling with an American cruise line, we do have to pay the gratuities in the same way that you guys do, I believe.
Okay. So you make your way to Piraeus, which is a cruise terminal for Athens. How was embarkation and how long did it take you from the curb to the ship?
We had quite a funny story, actually, on the way. The taxi driver picked us up from our hotel, a lovely chap, started to drive us to what we felt should have been the cruise port. I'd already looked online. It was about a 20-minute drive, supposedly, from our hotel to the port. And we'd been travelling for about 10 to 15 minutes. And he said, we'll get you there. We should be there in about 35 to 40 minutes. And I looked at my husband and thought, that's a lot longer than I thought. Perhaps it's just very busy traffic. Anyway, we carried on the trip and got onto a motorway. And all of a sudden, he started to speak in quite fluent Greek, which we couldn't understand, and said, "Where are you going? Where are you going?" And we said, "We're going to the cruise port." And he said, "Oh, no, I'm taking you back to the airport."
Oh, jeez.
So we were like, no. So then he literally slammed on his brakes in the middle of this huge road just so that he'd get off at the next junction and turn back and take us to the cruise port. But to be fair, it was quite a quick journey from then onwards. Once we arrived at the port, it was actually quite calm. Now, whether that was because we didn't have anybody disembarking because the previous cruise nobody was coming off, of course, but it wasn't overly crowded at that point. Cases got taken away from us straight away, and then we got onto the ship, I would say, through security in about 20 minutes. So not bad at all.
At this terminal, I've boarded a couple different terminals over there. Are you stepping right onto the ship from the pier?
Yes. Okay. Absolutely.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you board right there, pier side, no gangway or anything, and you're on board the ship. Once you get kind of like to the main atrium area, what were your first impressions?
So, pretty much what I'd expected. I do always watch YouTube travel reviews before we travel anywhere, actually. And so I had a pretty good idea of what to expect. I think for me, the atrium itself felt quite basic, a little bit underwhelming compared to some of the more modern ships. But I think the thing that struck me almost immediately and actually throughout the whole of the voyage was how clean and how considering she's a really old ship, how well maintained she was, certainly from a cosmetic perspective of the main areas. We arrived into the atrium and then we went straight to our muster station just to get that drill done before we then went to find our cabin.
Yeah, so what kind of cabin did you have for this 10-night cruise, and what did you think of it throughout your voyage?
So as I say, we're typically British, so we always go for the deal. Mm-hmm. My husband will say to me, go cheap, go twice, or in our occasion, go 3 times or 4 times if we actually can. So we tend to go for an interior stateroom, mainly because we don't spend an awful lot of time in there. It serves the purpose that we need. Having said that, when we were in Asia, I did have a balcony because I just felt that was important. So we had a guaranteed interior stateroom. So we found out our stateroom, I think, probably about 2 weeks before the sailing date. Mm-hmm. That's probably where I noticed the ship was dated. I think the stateroom really did show that. We were very lucky, pleasantly surprised that we'd been allocated a larger than standard cabin on midship on deck 7, which was excellent. So it was quite a large interior cabin. But I think where it showed the signs of age was very much a lack of plug sockets and no USB ports available at all. So we did find that we were swapping our tech around quite a bit just to get things charged. We also, when we looked at the deck plans, when we were allocated the cabin and we were having a look at where we were, we noticed that we were quite near to some elevators, some lifts. Mm-hmm. And we did think at the time, oh gosh, is that going to be a bit noisy? We're right outside the elevators, but actually it wasn't at all. We didn't notice that in the slightest. So very pleased. The cabin was spotless though, even though it's showing signs of being dated and a little bit old fashioned. Honestly, it was spotless. So we were really pleased with that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, being midship deck 7, did you have any noise issues side to side or up or below you?
No, not at all. And interestingly, from where we were, when we came out of our interior, we'd got like a great big picture window in front of us, which was beautiful, where the elevators were situated. And it was an open area that went down to the atrium. So when we were in that elevator area, you could actually hear, so if there was entertainment on in the atrium, you could actually hear that. But the minute that we walked into our stateroom, we couldn't hear anything at all. So it did a really good job of deadening any sound, which was great.
All right, well, let's talk about dining here on board Celebrity Infinity. We'll go up to the buffet area, which they call the Ocean View Cafe. How was the food and service up there, and did it ever feel too crowded?
Really interesting, Doug. So for us, we tend to eat in the main dining room for breakfast and evening meal, and then we'll use the buffet, the Ocean View Cafe, sort of lunch times or an afternoon snack, that kind of thing. I think the most crowded it felt was actually on embarkation. You know what it's like. As soon as everybody boards the ship, the first place they go.
Yeah, for sure.
So it felt a little bit crowded at that point. But beyond that, we never struggled to find a seat. It never felt overcrowded. And I'd actually go as far to say that the ship as a whole never felt overcrowded. And I do wonder whether either it's just because it was out of season and therefore there were less people going on that particular cruise, or whether it was because of the problems with the previous cruise. But I'm not sure it felt as though we were up to capacity at any point during the sailing.
This itinerary attracts an international crowd. So was the food representing that?
Yeah, there's a bit of everything. There was a Mexican station, an international station, a carving station, salads, just general fare. It was pretty good. One thing I really did like about that area, though, they had sort of like a complete area where you could get the ice cream complimentary. So it had a proper ice cream counter, and that was actually a big hit for us. Nice. So yeah, that was really good. And often on other lines that we've been on where it's complimentary, it's usually just strawberry, vanilla and chocolate. But on this one, there was a lot more variety. So actually that was a pleasant surprise.
By the pool, were there any like grills or grab and go stations?
There was a grill. So burgers, hot dogs, chicken, your usual. I think we only used that once. Wasn't really the temperature for us to be out by the pool very much. But what we did use was the spa cafe a couple of times, which was actually in the solarium area.
The spa cafe, is that just healthier, leaner choices?
So it was definitely more of a healthier range in the spa cafe.
Let's talk about the main dining room. So what time dining did you have and how was your experience in there?
So we were on the anytime dining. So we could go in anytime, I think from 5:15 up until, was it about 9 or 10? I mean, we don't eat that late. So for us, we're early diners. So yes, so we chose to go at around about 5:15, 5:30. We always like to catch a show. So it's important to us to kind of get dinner done and then go for the entertainment. So we were allocated a table. And interestingly, and I don't know whether this is a celebrity thing, because when we were on the Solstice, we were actually on a fixed dining time. So we always had the same table anyway. But on this particular cruise, with us being on anytime dining, we just thought we would be allocated a table anywhere within the Trellis restaurant, but we weren't. We actually ended up being in the same area for every single time that we dined, and we found that the same group of guests were eating with us at the same time, and they were all allocated that area. Now, I'm not sure whether that's to do with the gratuities to ensure that the waiting staff get their allocation because they've waited on that group of people throughout the whole of the cruise. Is that something that you would know?
I guess it varies on maybe staffing.
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know.
Don't know.
Yeah.
The tables, we were a couple. The tables for two were really close together. That's the only thing I would say. So it did feel as though we were almost on a sharing table. But having said that, the people that we were dining with were amazing, and we actually all chatted every night, and we didn't always have the same table, but we always had a table within the same cluster of tables, and there was a cluster of 6 tables of 2, and so all of us would kind of rotate around this cluster. So we all got to know each other. There was a lovely couple from Texas, a lovely couple from Newfoundland in Canada. There was a couple from Wales in England. So actually, it was really quite pleasant. But we'd chosen to be on a table for 2. Because again, that's a very British thing. But actually, we ended up having a lovely time chatting to the other guests. So yeah, it was great. And our waiters were brilliant. You're going to ask me about the food, aren't you?
Yeah, I was going to ask you that too, but I want to ask you this first because I go to Asia a lot for the day job, and Asia, everywhere I've been, Hong Kong, the Philippines, Singapore, China, when they sit you at a restaurant, you're basically at a two-top. You're sitting right on top of the people next to you, where sometimes it's a little even hard to shimmy in between tables to get to your chair, especially if you're against a wall or if it's a half booth and half table. Is that what it's like over in the UK too with dining? Because here in the US, it's not really like that. And when cruise ships do that, it's a little uncomfortable to me.
Exactly. And it is a bit uncomfortable. And I think you ask for a table of 2 because you just want to be together. You just want a table of 2. In the UK, no, we have got very similar. We come to the US quite a bit. We've got very similar, table settings as you have, and very rarely that they are so close to each other that you feel like you're sitting on top. So no, that's a bit alien to us as well.
Okay, I know I went a little sidetracked there, but I was just curious your thoughts on that.
No.
What about the food?
Yeah, the food was really good. My husband and I, we're not massive foodies. We love food, don't get me wrong, but but we're not kind of connoisseurs as such. So the main dining room suits us really well. I always feel that there's something for everybody, in my opinion. I do think maybe had we been on the cruise for much longer, we may have found it a little bit monotonous and wanted to perhaps try one of the specialty dining rooms, but we didn't get to that point. So we stuck with the main dining room throughout.
As far as the servers being attentive and spot on, attention to detail, was that there?
Absolutely, yeah. Definitely. They were brilliant. Couldn't have done anything better for us. There were a couple of times where I asked them just to switch out a couple of things for us, and they were straight on it. So, yeah, I could not complain about that at all. It was brilliant. Really good.
So outside of the buffet, the main dining room, and the grab and go by the pool, you mentioned you didn't do any specialty, but were there any other dining options around the ship? I know that, do they serve any kind of food or small dishes at El Baccio?
So you can get, I think, to be fair, I only went there the once because this was a cruise where we were off the ship a lot. So there was a lot of port stops in that 10 days. We only had 2 sea days. So it felt like we were off the ship a lot. I did go and get a couple of cookies, and I think that they probably had some cakes and some sandwiches there, which were complimentary. So I probably could have got something from there, but we never did. I think in terms of specialty, you would have had the Tuscan grill, and Le Petit Chef. Now, we'd done that on the solstice in December. So to be honest with you, it's kind of a one and done experience to a degree. I think it's absolutely fantastic. And I think if you've never done it, you must, because it is brilliant. But for us, we'd only done it, a couple of months prior. So it didn't feel as though it was something we needed to do this time.
A big question we get at Cruise Radio is, how do I know if I need trip insurance? Simple answer. If you're getting on a plane, taking a road trip, or getting on a cruise ship, you need to have travel insurance. Hey, it's Doug Parker from my friends at tripinsurance.com. Not only does tripinsurance.com protect your vacation investment, but it also gives you peace of mind in case anything were to go wrong on your trip. How do they do it? They offer 3 different types of trip insurance policies. Good, better, and best. One policy for every vacation budget. But it doesn't just stop there. They're up to 40% lower when you shop around on other comparison sites. Plus, tripinsurance.com offers 24-hour customer support before, during, and after your trip, online claims assistance, and travel alerts to let you know what's going on at your destination. But find out for yourself. Check out tripinsurance.com.
Have a tip or a lead on a news story? Let us know. Email tips@cruiseradio.net.
For the entertainment on board, how did it stack up for you throughout the 10 nights?
So we are big entertainment. When I say entertainment, I love the theatre shows. That's my thing all the way through. And actually, I felt that it was really good. The kind of guest acts, the headliners were all brilliant. Cruise director Nate, he kept everyone up to date with the daily activities and information. He also bangs out a couple of tunes prior to the headline acts coming on, and that was really good. We had some solo artists, and we also had a comedian and a magician, and they were all really, really good. The show cast were excellent. I particularly enjoyed their show Broadway, which covered lots of musicals. So yeah, really, really enjoyed that. I think there was lots of other things going on around the ship. To be honest with you, we didn't really sit in many of the lounges and do an awful lot of that, but we did take part in the pub quiz in an evening in the Constellation Lounge, which was also good fun.
Were there any sea days? I know that these Greece itineraries are very port intensive. Were there any just days at sea to chill out?
Yeah, we had 2 days at sea. And as I said earlier, it was a little bit chilly for us to be sitting out on deck, although some people were, and they did have blankets as well as towels available, which was a lovely touch. But we actually spent our sea days in the solarium. And again, that's another area where it was not overly busy at all. We had breakfast, and then we said, well, we'll go and see whether there's any seats, whether we can get any, any recliner chairs. And there was still quite a number available at around about 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning. Some of the British cruise lines, I don't know whether you're familiar, but honestly, you just can't find a sunbed anywhere. And I know that's often out on deck, but if it's a cool day and they've got something like the solarium, you would just not be able to find a seat available at that time in the morning. So we were pleasantly surprised. And we just chilled out by the solarium pool. Which was lovely because it's not a traditional swimming pool, that one either. It's like a spa pool, so it's beautifully hot, spa jets and two separate hot tubs there as well. So really lovely.
Celebrities' casinos are known for non-smoke, and I am curious, when they're sailing over in Europe, is it like over here in North America where it is still non-smoking?
Okay, so we don't do casinos, but we had to walk through it every night to get to the theatre on one of the decks, and I never noticed anybody smoking. So I think that must be a completely non-smoking casino.
Let's talk about the ports of call on this Best of Greece itinerary. So you leave Piraeus, which is the port for Athens. What was your first port of call, and what was your highlight there?
Okay, so our first stop was a small town called Nafplio, which was still on mainland Greece. To be honest with you, Doug, I'd never heard of half of these ports before, so that they were, well, as I say, we'd never been to Greece, but you kind of hear, especially in the UK, because Greece is a very popular holiday destination for a lot of Brits. So you kind of hear of the smaller islands, Crete, Rhodes, Corfu, Kos. Do you know what I mean? But I hadn't heard of some of these. And the ones I hadn't heard of tended to be the ones that were on the mainland. So Nafplio was our first one. Really pretty town, which has a fortress at the top of some 900 plus steps. So the mad of us decided to do that. And we did make it to the top. We'd kind of given ourselves a bit of a challenge to do as much walking as we possibly could when we were in the port stops. And we roughly averaged about 7 miles of walking per port stop.
Nice.
Trying to obviously walk off some of the food, to be fair, to be honest with you. But yeah, so 900 plus stops to get to the top of the steps to get to the top of the fortress, which we did. And the views were just absolutely spectacular. So highly recommend that. If you have the stamina to get up, then definitely do it. There is a paid entrance for the fortress at the top if you want to go inside. We decided not to do that. We just wanted to get to the top to look at the views, if I'm honest with you, which we got, which was just beautiful. And then, we then just kind of walked around the rest of the port area before getting back on the ship. Really lovely. I would imagine in the summer months, a beautiful stop with lots of bustle, and naturally a lot of the shops weren't open, or I think some of them are probably opened just because they knew a cruise ship was coming in, whereas I would imagine in the tourist season, everything would be open. So we did find that actually in most of the ports that we stopped in.
I was going to say, it sounds like a climb you want to do in the springtime and not in the dead of summer.
Exactly. And like I said earlier, that was another reason for wanting to go at this time of year, definitely.
So after the obscure port, what was up next?
Heraklion in Crete, a very popular British holiday destination. Actually, that day was my birthday. So we decided that we were going to get off and we were actually going to try, is it gyros or gyros or gyro? Anyway, famous Greek food. So that was kind of one of the ticks that we wanted to try and do. So, but it was a really overcast and quite cold day. So we did get off and we did walk. There's not an awful lot in Heraklion itself, and I think maybe if we were to go there again, we would look to perhaps do an excursion that took us a little bit further away from that port area. The shops were fine. Again, quite a number of them weren't open. We did find a cafe for coffee in the morning, and then we pootled a bit longer. And then, as I say, we did actually go and find somewhere to have gyros. And I did try ouzo because it was my birthday. So I felt I needed to give that a go as well.
Yeah, I believe there are quite a few archaeological sites around there.
Yeah, quite likely. We decided on this one to just stay port area on all of this, with it being our first trip over there. So other than when we went to Kusadasi, other than that, we did stay in the port areas. I've got a walking app on my phone, which is absolutely brilliant. And it does tours of so many different towns and cities across the world. And so we use it when we do city breaks and things like that. And actually, Heraklion was one of those that was on there. So we actually followed that tour on our phone.
What's the app?
And when you get to so it's called My GPS City.
Okay.
It's really good. It's an annual subscription, but I actually pay for it in dollars. I think it's about $15 for the year. And it's absolutely amazing. And it will take you to various sites, and it kind of guides you on a guided tour. So you end up walking down streets that you weren't even aware were there. And then all of a sudden you'll turn a corner and you'll be in front of this amazing building, and the app will actually tell you a little bit about it. So it's really good if you like to do things by yourself. So yeah, I love it. It's a great app.
Yeah, I see it right here. It is GPS My City, walks in 1K plus. Yeah, I love it. I'm going to download this. What was your next port of call?
Next port of call was Rhodes town. And that was by far our most favourite port stop. It is beautiful. Ancient buildings, palace, fortress, lovely cobbled streets, quaint squares and cafes. We also, because we'd got the app, we also walked up to the Acropolis and took in the views from there. There's also an awful lot of ruins around that area as well. And we were really fortunate because having had the day before where it wasn't so good weather in Rhodes, it was a beautifully warm day. So yeah, honestly, it was our most favourite port stop. It was just so pretty.
These ports we're talking about, did the ships dock right there in town, or were there shuttles involved?
We did have to do a tender in Nafplio, actually.
Okay.
So that first port stop was a tender. So we did have to do a tender to get to Nafplio. Heraklion, we just got straight off the ship and was able to walk, and the same in Rhodes as well.
Mm-hmm. So after Rhodes, what was up?
We had one other tender stop.
Mm-hmm.
I think it might have been Thessaloniki, but I can't remember which. But yeah, we had one other where it was a tender. But actually, that was really quick as well. So then we had a sea day after Rhodes, which we kind of needed after 3 days of 7-mile walking. So that was pleasant. Hence the reason why we spent most of the time in the solarium,
right.
actually. And then we went to another place, which was again mainland Greece, which was called Kavala or Kavala.
Mm-hmm.
This was a really pretty town as well, actually. And the main attraction there was a castle, which was again up on a hill. And I think, to be honest, the majority of the guests from the cruise were there. And I think that was one of the things for the whole of this, because the towns were quite small, and all of a sudden you get this huge, well, it's not a huge cruise ship, but you get a cruise ship come in with circa 2,000 people. There's not an awful lot of places for them to go. So everyone's going to all the same kinds of places unless you're going out on a bit more of an excursion. So lots of people walked to the top of the castle. That in itself was really good. And we decided to actually pay the admission price to go inside, which was only €4 per person. So that was well worth the ticket price, and beautiful views from the top of the castle as well. So yeah, it was very good. The only thing I would say about that, there was some tricky steps. It was quite uneven inside. So for anyone that's perhaps less able, it might have been a little bit tricky to actually get up to the top of the castle. But plenty of people were doing it, so it was good.
Looking at some pictures here of Kavala, I guess is how you pronounce it. I'm not really sure. Is that a fortified city wall, like around the city?
Yes, it is. Well, no, actually, it's not a fortified city. It's actually a big aqueduct.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Interesting.
but it's not an aqueduct where anyone can walk across the top of it or there's any traffic that comes across the top of it. But it's absolute. And when you go to the castle and you look down, you can see it, and it's absolutely beautiful. Like I say, it's stunning. Yeah, absolutely beautiful. Really nice.
So what port was up next?
Thessaloniki, I think it is. Actually, this was our least favourite. It was very city. It had very much a city feel to it. It felt like we'd literally just arrived in quite a large city. Sadly, the buildings were very heavily graffitied. So you'd have some absolutely beautiful buildings, stunning buildings actually, which we were following on this on our walking tour. But surrounding it was quite ugly concrete buildings, which, as I say, were very heavily graffitied. So it just wasn't overly pretty, which was a bit of a shame. Maybe if we went again, we would look to perhaps take a trip to go a little bit further out from the port area. But it was quite big. There was quite a big area. And actually that day we walked even more. And to the point, there's a new area that they've built on the waterfront, which I think was built, did they say, in 2013? That's kind of supposedly got restaurants and kind of a jogging track, and there's a big cycling track that goes all the way along the waterfront. Well, we'd walked from the ship through the town to the top of a fortress and the city walls, and then all the way back down. And then I'd said, let's go and have a look at this waterfront, without realising quite how far it was. And then when we got there wasn't an awful lot of, I expected there to be shopping and bars and restaurants, and there weren't that many. There were a couple. So we ended up downloading the app for these scooters. And so we hired just 2 little mini scooters. By this point, we'd done nearly 7 miles, and it looked quite a distance for us to get back to where the ship was. So so we downloaded the apps, and we got on these little electric scooters, and we could follow the cycle path all the way pretty much to where the cruise ship was. So that saved our legs having to walk that distance. So actually that was quite fun.
It's a lot like that in Vegas too, when you're walking down the strip and you see like the Bellagio or Treasure Island. We're like, we don't have to take an Uber. We can walk there. 3 miles later in 110 degree Fahrenheit, you're finally there. Exactly the same. I know. So we ended up, because I was tracking it on my my Apple Watch, we ended up doing about 9 miles in total. So it's a good job we did get on those scooters, because I'm not quite sure I'd have been able to get out of bed the next morning, to be honest. But yeah, so that was good. So that ship definitely docked. So I think it was Kavala that we actually had the other tender boat. Gotcha.
Thinking about it. Yeah. So then, so we'd had a sea day between Kavala and Thessaloniki, and then we were at Kusadasi in Turkey. Beautiful, actually. And we did have another slight issue here. So we had booked a tour through Viator. And we wanted to go and see the ancient Ephesus. I think it's kind of one of those must-do things when you are in Kusadasi. And we booked the tour. We got out of the port area, and we'd got our name on a board, and we met our tour guide. He shook us by the hand, said, "Wait here, I'm just waiting for the rest of the party to come." Absolutely great, no problem at all. He came back and saw us and said, "I'm just gathering the final people, but it's okay, you can stay here. I'll come and pick you up in a moment." Now, whether it was the I don't know where it slightly went wrong, but we'd been waiting probably another 10 to 15 minutes. And you know how busy the port area is with all the tours going and everything. It started to thin out and there weren't so many people. So I said to my husband, well, I just don't know. I haven't seen our tour guide again. So I went up to speak to the people that had originally signed us in and said, I'm meant to be on this trip. I've met the tour guide, but I don't know where he is. They phoned him and he'd gone. He'd left us.
Oh, geez.
And he'd gone to, and he was in Ephesus. So they taxied us. They got a guy to take us in a taxi to the site. Luckily, they're not that far away. And we got to Artemis, which was at like the first stop, and our tour guide was there. He was so apologetic. He said, I am so sorry I left you. He said, I don't know how it happened. I don't know whether it was in the communication between us. He definitely told us to wait. So we sat on that wall in exactly the same spot we'd been in from the first moment we saw him. So goodness only knows what he'd done. But then we were speaking to some other people on the tour, and he had actually made a comment about, I hope I've got everybody.
Oh, jeez.
but then still left anyway. So, so that was interesting, but he could not have been more apologetic. And actually, as a tour guide, he was excellent. So we still did tip him at the end because he was so good. But he insisted on buying us a coffee because he said, I have never done that before. I am so sorry. I will buy you a coffee, which he did. So that was so sweet of him. But yeah, luckily it wasn't too far away, because I think if it had been an excursion that was like an hour or 2 hours away from the port, like it is in Asia, for example, we would have been snookered. We wouldn't have been able to probably go. So, but anyway, it turned out well. It was all fine. And wow, Ephesus is absolutely amazing. Have you been?
I have. I was there last March, and it is amazing to walk through history. That's for sure.
Honestly, I was so surprised at the scale. I just was not expecting it to be as big as it was. And I don't know whether they said it to you, but they told us that only 20% has been excavated. So there's the remaining 80% still to be unearthed. I'm like, wow. And it's huge. And that was where he was saying to us it was 50 degrees in the summer and it was just unbearable, which I can completely understand because it's all that marble, isn't it? And, so I reckon that would probably, conduct the heat. So I think it was in the heat of the summer, I would imagine that would be quite difficult, should we say. But no, it was absolutely beautiful. And it was a lovely trip, actually.
Yeah,
we really enjoyed it.
There's enough cats there to help dig up too, it seems.
Yes, 50 apparently that live on site. 50 that live on site, and they feed them every day. In fact, we saw probably about 20 of them being fed, we saw, was it 2 or 3 dogs as well, and they all have their ears clipped to show that they are kind of being looked after, which is lovely.
We were walking in with our tour guide, and there was a cat on a post sitting there looking at us. Tour guide gave him a high five. So everyone gave the cat a high five, and the cat every time gave a high five back. It was the coolest thing ever. Wow.
Oh, wow. That is so cool.
But yeah, amazing place. And yeah, a lot of great coffee at the exit too.
Yes, definitely. We were really impressed. And it still gave us time at the end to actually go and explore the port area. So we did, when we got back to the port area, we could kind of have a little look around the shops there as well. So actually plenty of time in port and to get to see Ephesus and to get back and still have time to wander around. So actually that was a really lovely port stop.
You mean you didn't get the Turkish rug pitch?
No, luckily we did not. And actually, I think on Viator, one of their kind of selling points is that they're not going to take you to a Turkish rug place. Because I think so many people get had like that, should I say, and are not overly keen with the upsell. So no, we didn't. So that was quite pleasant. Yeah,
I think if you're going through the cruise line, you're going to go there, and I am sure there's some back end commission going to the line for bringing passengers through there and then buying $25,000 rugs. Because
I would imagine so.
Yeah, they have a pretty high value. You may have heard me say this before, but we were doing our tour last year, and we rolled in, got off the bus, and the tour guide was like, "Oh, let's go have a Turkish coffee." I'm like, "Okay, cool, I'm down for that." The ship was right there in front of us, so we walk in. Not even 5 minutes later, we're served the coffee. We're sitting there like just chilling out or whatever. And they start rolling out like 15 different rugs and telling us to take our shoes off and walk across them and feel how soft. And I was like, oh, here we are. And we couldn't go anywhere because we were like stuck in this room. It was like the most awkward and painful thing to sit through. But hey, people bought rugs. So whatever. Who am I to judge?
I know, but it is. And that's the thing though, isn't it? They still keep doing it, but it is that really awkward. We had that happen to us in Morocco. Very similar thing. We'd taken a tour and we'd had to sit through this whole rug presentation, and it was just my husband and I, so not even with a group of people. And it was the most awkward thing. And it was like, we're on a city break with hand luggage only. We are not going to be taking a rug home. Can you just not understand that? So it was really bizarre. But yeah, like you say, they obviously must make some sales. Otherwise they wouldn't do it, would they?
Yeah, for sure. After Ephesus, what was the next port?
So we're back in Athens.
Back in Athens.
So luckily, as I say, we'd had a couple of hours on that first day when we got there to kind of get a feel for the kind of main area. We wanted to do the Acropolis. Yeah. Who wouldn't? You've kind of got to do it. And we'd found that from the port, as you probably can tell already, we're very much do-it-yourself kind of people. Yeah. So we'd found that there was, from the port entrance, there was a local bus we could get on. And that dropped us into Piraeus town, and we were able to get a metro which took us all the way up to the stop, which is right next to the Acropolis.
Nice.
So we did that. I think it was something ridiculous like €1.20 per, €1.20 there and €1.20 back. I think it was really cheap. And then we paid the ticket price, obviously, to go into the Acropolis area. Up the slopes and have a look at that. That is also another place that is completely stunning, isn't it? It's just a must-do place. You just have to do it. The architecture is amazing. You stand in there, aren't you, with literally thousands of years of history right in front of your eyes. So you just have to kind of take a bit of a moment when you see that. And it's all just so carefully and beautifully maintained. So really loved that, actually.
Yeah, about 10 years ago. Yeah, it was 2016. I was on a Carnival ship and we overnighted. And I guess we were getting off the next day. And we came in early like you did. And they had a shore excursion that was dinner at the Acropolis.
Wow.
It was a little long for it was like 7 course with wine pairing and everything. So a little long for me, but it was just a crazy experience to just sit there in the middle of all of that and just think of like you said, the thousands of years of history behind us.
Yeah, I know. It is phenomenal. And apparently they do use there's like a massive kind of theatre there, isn't there? Mm-hmm. And they use that for concerts and shows and different things going on all year round. And I'm like, wow, that would be amazing to time it so that you're there when something like that is on as well. But So it's just beautiful. So really pleased that we got to do that.
Any post-cruise time, and how was debark?
We literally went from the ship to the airport and then we flew home. Having said that, we were on quite a late flight. Well, I say late flight out. We left at 5 p.m. Mm-hmm. So we were one of the last to disembark. Our kind of leaving time was 9 a.m. And then, as I said, we did have the cruise transfer. So we'd got buses, coaches that were taking us from the port to the airport. It was a really smooth and quick disembarkation, actually, and the coaches were sat right there waiting for us. We walked straight out. They took the cases off us, put them onto the coach, and I think it's about an hour and 15 an hour and 30, something like that, to get from the port to the airport. And then when we got to the airport, we just had quite a long wait, unfortunately. But that's the way it goes, isn't it?
Yeah. You checked off this bucket list destination and this bucket list cruise for you. Any first-time tips to offer either anyone doing this itinerary or sailing Celebrity Infinity?
Yeah, so Celebrity, this was our second cruise with Celebrity. As I said, having done the Solstice at the latter part of last year. She's an old girl, but honestly, cosmetically, I think she's doing really well. You know, yes, I think the staterooms could probably do with a bit of a refresh, but the kind of public areas were still really well maintained. For us, she's kind of big enough to have everything on that we like on a ship, but small enough so that we can get around quite easily. For us, the staff were just so thoughtful and attentive. They went above and beyond. And, you know, it was just a really great value cruise for us, which, as I said to you right at the start, you know, is something that we're always looking for. And it just made for a really enjoyable winter getaway. You know, we want to try and get away from the British weather, especially in January and February. Right. So it was just, it was the perfect opportunity for us. And because we'd never done Greece before, everything was new. So that's what's just so special, isn't it? You know, when you go to a place for the very first time. And, you know, I think if we did it again, we would look to go to do some different excursions away from the port areas. I think the port areas probably are maybe a little bit better in season, i.e. more shops open, more restaurants open. You know, you could tell in a couple of places where the restaurant had opened purely because the cruise ship was in and it was packed. And there were quite a number of other restaurants or cafes that weren't open. So I would imagine in the height of season, they would all be open. So you'd have a lot more choice. That's the only thing I would say in terms of a negative. But for us, it ticked all the boxes that we could have hoped for. So, yeah, it was brilliant. Loved it.
Looking back, what was the biggest highlight of this cruise for y'all?
Getting on it in the first place. Having the previous one being cancelled and that kind of slight concern as to whether we would actually get to go or not. I suppose that was a big tick for us. For me, the port stop that really stuck out, there's two, I guess. You just can't not be impressed with Ephesus and the Acropolis area of Athens. But in terms of a place I could probably go back to and vacation, Rhodes was it for me. It was just so beautiful. And you kind of know when it's been a good stop, when you want to go back for more.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Is there anything that you think Celebrity could improve on, whether it be on the ship itself or programming?
It's difficult because I haven't cruised with Celebrity too much. I've only been on two of their older ships. Okay. I'd really love to go on one of their newer ones, if I'm honest. Yeah. I tend to like the modern ships. More so than the older ones. But I think for this itinerary, Infinity suited that itinerary really well. We went mainly for the destination, if I'm honest with you, rather than the cruise ship. So rather than the cruise being the destinations were the destination. Whereas I think sometimes we would go on a cruise ship because we really want to make the most of that. We've done a number of transatlantics, for example, and those tend to be where you actually really want to spend quite a lot of time on the ship.
Yeah, fair enough.
Whereas with this one, we wanted to spend quite a lot of time off. So it gave us that opportunity.
Your final thoughts of Celebrity Infinity?
Just loved every minute of it. You know, yes, she's an old girl, but as I said, I think cosmetically, she's showing her age really well. I think she's charming, actually. Celebrity couldn't have done any more for us. We're not overly fussy. So, you know, we really appreciate the trips that we're able to take. You know, we feel blessed every time we go on holiday or vacation. There was nothing that I could fault, in my opinion, that they could have done better for me.
Very good. We've been talking with Andrea about her 10-night Best of Greece cruise aboard Celebrity Infinity. Andrea, it was great talking to you. We unpacked a lot here, and thank you for sharing your vacation with us.
You are very welcome. It's been an absolute pleasure. So thank you so much for your time. I've loved it.
All right, Dougie, let's see what we got for you, buddy. Cruise Radio is produced at the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida. Get cruise news, ship reviews, and money-saving tips every Thursday on Cruise Radio. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the show. If you want to help spread the word, give Cruise Radio a 5-star review. Find Cruise Radio where you listen to your favorite podcast or online at cruiseradio.net. I'm your announcer,